Hi folks, with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to talk about something I've actually seen quite often, and that's an obsession with a fixation with educational qualifications and certifications, and how this obsession and fixation has detached itself from all practical workplace reality. So there's been a complete divergence here where reality's gone in one direction and this fantasy of supposed educational qualifications has gone in another. Now, just dealing with a client, and there's a few of my colleagues were there, a customer, and we're out at their site, and there's a minor part of the work that we need to do needs to wait until they put someone in place, so they're hiring somebody new. But I noted that well, isn't that the job that you were trying to fill, a little while ago? Oh yeah, but the new guy didn't work out. And then one of the people there was telling me about it, saying, well, actually, this is our fourth attempt to fill this role. So three of the people, two of them apparently lasted for 5 or 6 weeks or something like that. I get the impression that it was in one instance they may have invited the person to leave, but in the others the person left themselves. So the second one, the guy lasted a few weeks. The third one, I think the guy lasted barely a week, and they're now on the fourth attempt to fill this role. So if it's one person doesn't work out, well, who cares? Two people don't work out, well, okay, all right, then let's have a closer look at this. If three people don't work out, there's a problem somewhere, and it's maybe the selection process, maybe the role is in a totally dysfunctional situation, maybe no matter who's doing it, it's never going to work out, or but there's something, maybe the supervising manager is useless, but there's something there to look at apart from just the person you put into the role. So anyway, looking at this level of dysfunction, as soon as I see that sort of dysfunction, it always attracts my attention. When things don't work, I've almost got this natural, curiosity to say, well, how can it be fixed? And it's just something I've had since childhood, really. Anyway, this was so I'm looking at this. I thought I'll take a closer look. Now, it was nothing to do with us and had nothing really to do with me and personally. So I had to be a little bit cautious in how I went about it and the questions I asked, and because I don't want it to come back, what's it got to do with you? What are you doing? What are you doing here telling us our business? So you got to be just a little bit cautious. So anyway, I was asking around and ended up we were having coffee out at the cafe, and there's a few people there. One of whom was one of the senior people in HR, who as it turned out was the person assigned to hire this job they've got so much trouble keeping people for. Now she's I wouldn't call her a rabid feminist activist or social justice warrior or something like that, but she's certainly sympathetic to that side of things. But it's more her perception, and those around her. She's not alone or unique. Even the line manager in the area thinks pretty much as she does. And that is, well, why didn't the person work out? Well, they just didn't have the education. That's what, okay, all right then. They didn't have the education. So, it was to do with this particular role was to do with, say, equipment. I'll simplify it here, do with equipment maintenance, for example. So they had to have a degree in electrical engineering, which I think was an overqualification for what they wanted, but they didn't see it that way. And I'll come back to some reasoning that they put into this in a minute, but to them, electrical engineering. Now, the person didn't work out for whatever the reason. He gave a lot of reasons. Maybe they're lazy, maybe they can't be bothered, maybe they're blind, whatever the reason. Maybe they don't understand the requirements, maybe the resources they were given were inadequate. You can go through a whole lot of reasons, but if someone that on the face of it has the experience and the qualifications, the education, the certification. They've done the job previously. If they don't work out and they fail so quickly, there's usually something else to look at. It's not just you hired the wrong person. That's not it. There's something. Now, I'd pick that up after just one hire. Nor would, since you've got the person there, you've hired them, you're already paying them, it makes more sense to make it work than it does to let them go. Now, maybe you've got no choice. Maybe they're just absolutely useless and or worse than useless even. But nonetheless, the effort should be made. I didn't get the impression any effort was made to keep them or to find out what the problem was. If indeed there was a part, I just got the impression they just, we don't think it's working out, off you go. And they're still within some probationary period or something. So, but it just struck me as odd. Now, when the second one came along, they thought, okay, well, first guy had a degree in electrical engineering, and that didn't work out. So what we'll do is we'll get someone that's got a degree in electrical engineering and a certificate of operational field maintenance. So we'll get that as well. Now that'll fix it. So the second one didn't work out. So now they're on the third one. So, well, what we need is the person has to have a degree in, because they're assuming time management could be an issue here. I mean, maybe it was, but so you have to have a degree in electrical engineering and a degree in, logistical management and a certification in. So that there are the 2 degrees now and a certification, like a 6-month college course or something. So, okay, I mean, you're unlikely to have the degree and that certification. That would be a fairly rare thing. Because it would be assumed if you had a degree in electrical engineering, you would also understand how to go out and fix things. That's hardly. But these people who are making these don't see it that way. They see things at very much little boxes, and you just have to add another little box, then another little box, and so on. So now they're at the fourth thing, and so they're looking at, well, okay, so what we need is a degree in electrical engineering and then a master's degree in electrical engineering or electromechanical engineering, and then a degree in logistics and a certificate of field maintenance. And so now we're talking about someone that would be in university for, because engineering courses typically go for 5 years. So 5, 8, 9. So we're talking about someone who's got 10 years of education. They prefer a younger person, so someone in their 30s. And they also want them to have 5 years experience doing the job, and that they have to be doing that job at their previous employer, whoever or wherever they are. So anyway, this is now, they're front end loading this to such an extent. So I was talking to the HR lady. I said, well, is this the problem? Like maybe the problem's somewhere else. Maybe there's an issue with some of their supervision, or maybe the machinery to be serviced is a million miles away from the office where they've got to work out of, or maybe they need a lot of tools and equipment to do the support that isn't there, and so on and so forth. I mean, there could be a whole lot of other factors here. Have you looked at anything else? And she looked at me as if I was the biggest idiot that had ever walked the face of the earth. No, it's just an issue of education, that's all. And I suggested, sort of almost, humorously, that if this person didn't work out, would they add yet another degree to the requirement? And she just nodded. Well, yeah, we would. And so what, you would add 100 degrees, 1,000 degrees? I mean, this is absurd. There's no attempt to come to grips with the reality. To them, it's just a case of education and certification. And that's it. Now, I'm going back a few years here where, excuse me, I was asked by someone I knew to help a startup company. Now, this is a startup company, and the funding came from one of the BlackRock type outfits, and they just went to their social network of these are old money rich people who want to swan around pretending that they're high-powered business people, and they're making deals. They're deal makers, and nothing of the sort. So, but these people come from old money, generations ago, the families were rich, and they've all been to the most expensive private schools, expensive universities, never worked a day in their lives, but they want to pretend that they're real high-powered, mega star businessmen, heavy hitters. To them, it's a game, and it's something that because of their social breeding and standing, that they somehow can, like gods, they can just effortlessly, how like Jesus touched someone and cured their cancer, walked on water. It's that sort of thing. It's almost a messianic view they have of themselves, that their mere presence or their mere touching something will turn it into gold. So anyway, they needed to hire a CEO, and so this friend of mine said, well, look, these people kind of don't really understand how to go about it. They're not business people. Can you help them? will you, that they don't want to get someone out of the beltway because they're concerned that they they may get embarrassed. So will you help them? So I said, sure. And they paid me, quite a generous fee, really, at the end of the day. And so I went along to the meeting, and it was a wonderfully appointed office with magnificent views, and they even brought in catering, and the catering was it was, what can I say, it was a sumptuous affair. The no expense was spared on the catering. I mean, there somebody, somebody's monthly salary wouldn't have been enough to cover the catering cost for just a few hours. So anyway, we're sitting there talking, and I'm trying to get them to say what it is they want. Now they want a CEO for a startup company that's in the air. It's like a new, I suppose a new wonder drug. Maybe that's a way of putting it. And I'm simplifying it a bit there, but so they all went around the room and they were trying to outdo each other, and their naivety was just mind-boggling. But it was their decision to make. So, goodness me, I'm going to have to take a sip of water here. Sorry, folks. So we got to the point where we reached the stage where we said, well, what qualifications do you want the person to have, this CEO that needs to be hired? So each person had, and this comes back to what I was talking about a moment ago, they'd broken down the functions of the job down into little boxes. So each little box, that, as they deemed it, had to have a specific qualification as an educational standard with each little box. So, and this just an illustration of their lack of understanding of the world of reality, of practical reality, and so on. So one person, well, the person has to deal with, they're dealing with medical stuff, so they have to have a degree in medicine. They have to be a doctor. Okay, all right then, doctor. Someone else chimes in. Well, they're going to need to be a good salesman, selling the drug to people, companies, and also to say things like the Wall Street brokers. So they need to just they need a degree in sales and marketing. Okay, degree in sales and marketing. Someone else pipes up and says, oh well, they have to also they're most of the people they're going to be talking to are going to be around Asia, so they need to understand Asian culture. They had to have a degree in Asian studies, and it went on like that. So each little segment of what the functions would be, and then another would say, well, I know that Billy Bob mentioned sales and marketing, but really they should have a master's in sales and marketing. We really need someone who knows about this. So these are people who don't understand any of these functions, by the way. They understand nothing of it. They have no comprehension of the detail at the street level. They have no comprehension of the supervisory, or the overarching project management, if you will, of different functions. They just see everything as a specific little box. So it ended up something in the order of 7 degrees and 2 masters or 3 masters and a PhD or something. And that's okay. So and I hadn't said anything at this point, so I was just making the notes. Then it got to the experience. Oh, they need 10 years experience. And they have 5 years of this. So I added all that up and said, okay, well, the youngest the person could be would be 85 years old, given all your requirements here. so so there was sort of surprised and perplexed looks around the room. Well, what do you mean? He goes, well, you want 7 degrees and 2 masters and this and that, and you also want 35 years of experience on the job, and you want someone to be no older than 40. But in order to have all the experience and the qualifications you want, for example, they'd have needed to have spent nearly 30 years at university alone just to get the qualifications and they would have needed to have done this and that. So again, there was a confused look, so one of them said, "Well, add it up again," and they with some sort of annoyance and irritation and wild hand gesticulations, add it up again. And so, well, look, so I wrote it all up on the whiteboard. And again, the confused, perplexed looks of, well, how can, and this, this is like talking to a simple-minded person who only spends $20 a day on their lunch, but when you tell them that adds up to $600 a month, they go, what? But it can't. It's only $20 a day. How can it be $600 a month? Then you have to do, well, 30 times 20. You have to go through the mathematics very. Oh, well, how can it be? How can it be that much? And these people were really the same. Well, how can 10 degrees, how can 10 degrees and 2 masters add up to 37 years? How can it? And these people can't be that naive. They can't be that unqualified. I mean, why are they even in these? But they've never had to make difficult decisions, never had to think things through. They've never had to, do the hard crunching of numbers. They've been able to, because of their wealth, they've been able to delegate it or pass it off or just ignore it as being an issue. But now they actually have to deal with it. And this is, I would suggest, the first time in their lives, these people, that they've ever dealt with this or had to deal with it or have to deal with even this low level of complexity. I mean, to me, it was obvious that it was ridiculous to have this many degrees, but to them, not so. And so the conversation went, but the person does need to know about sales and marketing. They need to know. So they must have a degree in it. What's wrong with that? And okay, you have to explain it to them as if they're children. They've had a way more expensive and better education than I've had, but they have no concept of practical reality. So it's okay, sure, but when you look at all these qualifications, you still need to understand, still need to come to grips with the issue. No one can live that long that they would spend 30 plus years at university and have 30 plus years of work experience as well, and would be under the age of 40. How can you have all that together? Just do the simple arithmetic. Now, when it comes to qualifications, they say, well, no one can know anything unless they have a degree in it. And that's probably more where I'm getting at, where things have gone today. That's where reality has particularly detached. Firstly, degrees are given out on an affirmative action basis now, so anyone can get them. Things like sales and marketing degrees, I don't know if anyone fails that sort of stuff. Things like Asian studies and so on, I don't think anyone fails that either. These are all affirmative action degrees. So they don't mean people know or can do anything. People who are required to perform in certain environments and produce results in those environments, that is reality. So, well, I someone can come in and say, well, I went around Asia and, involved in the medical field and was successful. And it couldn't be that maybe they're successful because they had an absolutely rip snorter product to deal with. Maybe they were successful because they busted their ass. Maybe they're successful. So the issue is, as I tried to explain, someone who has the ability to see the whole picture of what's needed and bring it together into one cohesive project, one cohesive sort of working system. This is the sort of person you need. Now, they may have a degree in one or more of these things. Maybe they've got the experience, and maybe they've got that ability to perceive the practical reality of the job that needs to be done. Maybe they'll focus in on the most important issues and make sure that that works. Where they don't have that ability, maybe they'll hire other people to do it and gather the skills around them. but you need a leader who can see the big picture, see the details, and gather the skills around them as needed. That's what you need. You don't need someone who's got 99 degrees or 500 years experience. Or so. That's not the relevant thing here. So I tried to explain this to them. It's a concept that I don't think is complicated, but they can't grasp it. They've never. That's not a world that they even understand or so on. Yet ideally they should. Again, they've had the very best education money can buy, and yet they seemed imbecilic nonetheless. In practical terms, that is. I don't doubt that they couldn't quote me Shakespeare or something, but in practical terms, they were quite imbecilic, I thought. One guy tried to impress us all by being able to recite off the chemical symbol chart, H2SO4, and all this sort of thing. So he thought that was a measure of his smarts, but his smarts, reciting off the chemical symbol chart, has no relevance to what he was doing. So this is where the detachment from reality has taken place, and where this is now not unusual. It's actually widespread. I'd say that view of say hiring skills, practical reality, qualifications, education, that strange, it's all little boxes that you just keep adding onto each other. That view is more widespread than any other view of practical reality. So you're looking at HR departments, most line managers, and certainly affirmative action people. That's very much the case. And in the public service, it's completely widespread. That things like, is somebody, are they going to apply the right energy and effort? Are they going to understand the complex issues about getting their job done, or all these sorts of things? Because the more these people load up, we get just another degree. Well, that guy didn't work out. Well, we'll add another degree. That guy didn't work out. We'll add another degree. And they'll just keep that. They perceive that is the solution. That's the answer. And that's where the problem was previously. And therefore, there is no attempt to come to grips with any form of reality. And this is very widespread. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.